is very different in terms of play style compared to Xavier Esports. And we've seen Xavier and Bazaar play against each other in trials, and this was something that was relevant back then as it is relevant now, that Xavier have always kind of just felt like this more controlled team, this kind of more patient team, more disciplined team. Bazaar, we kind of describe them as the sledgehammer kind of game plan, gameplay rather, and it does kind of work, but it's just not as satisfying as when Xavier kind of just win the way they do.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair to say. And it is also going to be Xavier once again opting into the defense first. Pretty stock standard.
Xavier now onto the Soldier, THK onto the Tracer, so that is the result of the substitution. AKTM now on his 5th hero of the evening, so kind of just stretching out and flexing onto all those different things.
And we've surely got to consider if he's not going to go off in spectacular fashion tonight, then, or rather if he is, then this would be the hero to do it on. Headshots left, right, and center. That is what I want to see out of AKTM, but so far it is higher men down, and unfortunately the tank's getting pressured back out of this initial push. Xavier Esports just weathering the storm. Yeah, so low for THK, but not closing out the kill means unfortunately Yoshimoto don't really have a leg to stand on in this push.
Very Xavier, by the way, to just barely not have anyone die. They just, make sure that no one goes down. This is kind of like Numbani, where you sort of mentioned you could count on one hand how many people died. So far though, first defense looking pretty good out of Xavier. Well, no crazy ultimates just yet. The defensive ones look pretty good, but for Yoshimoto Encount, they're kind of waiting for, on one hand, AKTM to find a pick, but also they're kind of looking to give him room. Oh, there it is, that one.
Finally goes. I was about to say that you can actually counter on no hands, but that's not true anymore. Literally one death, but it could be the one that matters if AKTM can just find a few more angles now, trying to catch the Zenyatta or something, or at least drill down Queen's Winston. And off the back of that, it looks like they're maybe... Yeah, he's not dead yet, and now with that Transcendence, he is not going to die in a hurry. Also with the Nano Boost on him to pressure out Yoshimoto Encount, it pays off as Mappin drops. Now Yoshimoto Encount just once again finding themselves kind of getting rebuffed here a little bit.
Just so resilient, this lineup of Xavier Esports. Every time it feels like Yoshimoto Encount find a little bit of an edge, get a headshot kill into THK, force a respawn. Thankfully for Xavier, THK as a Tracer gets back into action pretty quickly. Put Queen down to like 100 or less HP, 50 or less HP even for most of that engagement. Doesn't goes down, receives a nano boost, pushes out Yoshimoto Encount, and now it's a full reset yet again.
Kind of feels like Yoshimoto Encounter like sailing into a headwind here or something, like doesn't matter how skilled
they got a zigzag. That's how they got to play them.
Well, yeah, like it doesn't really matter how skilled they look and how well they're doing certain things. They just can't seem to make any headway. Now committing once again with their own Nano Boost and their own Transcendence. This has got to be the one that they break through on, surely. Self-destruct out from Saint, not finding anything. And now they're looking really lean on ultimates. It's THK getting the first kill on Mason, who did not commit the Primal Rage, unfortunately. And once again, just kind of getting beaten back.
Yep, not a single death. Well, I won't speak too soon, but so far, not a single death from Xavier Esports. You see the way they just bunker up as soon as any threat comes in. They hide, they back off, they play the chokes effectively. Let's take a look at the replays or AKTM. This should be the kill on the THK from earlier. Oh, okay, I see what happened. So this was the sleeper. So actually, you got to give it to Hyman once again. Hyman was kind of the hero of the defense in Numbani. Now is actually part of the way that Yoshimoto Encount are even finding picks in the first place.
And now not even sticking to the Widowmaker here, they're moving over to a Genji. They're realizing that they aren't able to get enough headshots to kind of make that slow patient play where you pick up a couple and then with a numbers advantage go in. They just need to blast the hole through, and that's how you do it. Off to a much better start this time around, picking the two supports, but it is not over yet. Olivier self-destruct out, doesn't die either. May even remech, indeed he does. Yoshimoto Encounter aren't exactly on the point here. They're still just fighting off to the side, but it looks like they've finally found the way in. They just catch a couple of members of Xavier off to the side in the room, kill them, get back on the point now, and this should be the one where Yoshimoto Encounter get things underway.
Yeah, we really need the nano boost from Azalea and Dreamer though, and they're not going to see it maybe in time if Xavier don't regroup. And it looks like they're going to give this one up, and you have to credit them for the discipline to say they will do that, because now they can have these defensive options for B rather, Yoshimoto Encount. Now with a little bit of momentum behind themselves, you talk about them sailing into headwind. Well, now maybe the wind is behind them.
See AKTM continuing to try and poke. There it is going to be the Nano Boost out straight away. Tactical Visor as well. We have a name for that combo. And they get the kills. That's what counts the most. And honestly, Yoshimoto Encount still committing ultimates into this one. And it does start to pay off. They get a few kills of their own through now Dragonblade, AKTM, looking to open it up. Azalea smartly backing off, but that does mean they get a third here, may even get two. No, here comes now Queen back in for the contest. Primal Rage as well will allow the entire team to pour back into this fight, even up the numbers, and indeed,
reflect.
Yeah, very nicely done onto Azalea, but even kills does help swing things the way of Xavier, strictly speaking, just with that respawn advantage, just shy of 2/3 as well. 66.3, can you believe it? 0.3% away from getting the second tick.
Xavier Esports definitely can, and it was well timed enough that they didn't give away the second tick. That would have been deadly. That would have been disastrous. That would have put Yoshimoto Encount in a winning position, in the driver's seat indeed, to get this full cap on through. But only giving away 33, you'll give that away because that's still playable. Xavier still have options against that. 240 remaining is not a lot of time for Yoshimoto Encount to find another Doom push when they have all the ultimates that they need to complete the final 2/3.
That being said, Xavier Esports are lean on ultimates of their own, so they may not need the Doom push here, Yoshimoto Encount. They have just enough. They have the Transcendence. We'll be getting the Primal Rage. And oh dear, as I said, that AKTM going down as he was close to the Dragonblade. They're starting to get the time on the point, though. Contested just shy of getting that extra third, and they're not getting the kills either. Yoshimoto Encount might just have to take this one on the chin. Luckily, didn't spend too much time on it, though.
Didn't spend ultimates either, which is very important for this team. They were able to go in, kind of test the waters a little bit, test out what kind of defense Xavier were going to throw into this. Are Xavier going to commit something of their own? Right now, they don't really have much to commit. And Yoshimoto, talk about the Doom push, talk about finding the ultimates. They found them, so now this has to be the push.
I mean, surely it must, right? They've got that Dragonblade about to come up as well. AKTM, this is the time to get that 6K, buddy. Or not.
He can feel the pressure. As soon as you say that, it's like, ooh.
He's like, oh, geez. Can I live up to it? THK, Pulse Bomb does go wide. Xavier lean. Oh, nice. That's a good catch. Yeah. Now these ultimates out of Xavier are just kind of, you know, kind of looking to stall out, regroup and all that. Also, it forces Yoshimoto to use more to open out a bigger advantage. And this is AKTM trying to find the opening kill to justify the Dragonblade being pulled out. They get THK and now wants to rejoin with that ultimate as the ultimates come out for Xavier. Self-destruct, Nano Visor, and that is going to be more than enough to rebuff Yoshimoto after all those ultimates were committed. That is so rough.
Even with a rare pick onto Zaylee and a rare mistake from Xavier Esports to kind of let that happen, you don't normally see the Soldier play getting picked up that easy, whether it's THK or Zaylee playing it. It's a very hard hero on the Xavier side to kill, but for Yoshimoto, they did commit a lot into that. You expected the 6K, didn't quite get it. Azalea, though, did get himself a 3K.
And they did at least get themselves a third. That is something to be considered here for Yoshimoto. But it's going to be extremely hard for them to get that final third, unfortunately. And they've only got the one chance for it. They've really got to make this count.
And they can't make any mistakes either. Any further deaths here could be the end of their push. They don't have time to wait. They can't play another push. 1/3 to cap. 19 seconds remaining.
That's Dreamer.
That could.
Oh, but Maffin, the trade back and forth, and you've got to consider losing that DPS. It's going to be a lot more impactful. Plus that closer respawn for Dreamer as they kill Hayamin as well. Olivier D-Mex is not really enough to swing this back the way of Yoshimoto. AKTM dead by Azalea's hand before he can set up on that high ground that Soldier players do so love. Look, they got a couple more percentage points on it at the end of that. It was initially 79, got it up as high as 86, but you would have liked to have capped out completely. And now Xavier, they have the series within their grasp.
You could just see the kind of read by Xavier Esports as well. The fact that Azalea, he knew the flank he needed to make, not even so much expecting, or potentially expecting AKTM to be there, but regardless if AKTM was there or not, that was the kind of play that you would want to make as a Soldier, because then your team does get dived on the point. The whole thing is happening in overtime. You have high ground control, high ground advantage. It just so happened AKTM also happened to be there. You'll take it. That's a cherry on top, and a delicious one at that.
Well, and that's the thing that's so smart about that move, really, is like you go there and either you may be able to kill AKTM, or if he's not there at all, then you just kind of get that high ground for free, right? Like, it almost can't go wrong in a way.
And this was that push. AKTM pulled out the Dragon Blade, but a Nano Visor will take that one over the blade this time around at least. Azalea and Xavier Esports will definitely make that trade any day of the week.
I mean, if we're considering, you know, unmitigated successes, as it were, as far as DPSs go, I don't want to say that AKTM is, you know, underperforming or under-delivering or anything. I don't want to speak to the negative of that because I don't think that's particularly fair. He's not playing badly. Nothing is going horribly wrong.
It's also unfair to single him out, right?
Exactly. What's actually happening is out the gate, all of the DPSs he's had to come up against on Xavier have played phenomenally well. Azalea, for his first performance, is an absolute knockout so far.
And it says a lot about the team, and I got to go back to the playstyle, I got to go back to the Flash Wars comparison.
Yeah.
It says a lot about the team when two different DPS players on the exact same role, being THK on Soldier on the previous two maps, Azalea being the Soldier so far on this map before they've now kind of changed it up. But the fact that they both understand so well exactly what is required of this role, what the team wants to be able to achieve, and then play to those objectives so well. I mean, that's not just lightning in a bottle anymore. That's like your whole team just understands what you need to do.
Yeah, there's a point where it's not lightning in a bottle and it's just a straight up lightning storm. THK checking for the traces.
Pretty confident there isn't one.
Yep. Now just more than happy to start eyeing up those sight lines, fishing for headshots.
Looking for a muffin.
What?
Or muffin.
Oh,
I wanted to say muffin.
right. Okay, I completely missed what you were getting at. But it is actually AKTM who draws the first blood. Now I just really want a muffin.
You just put that thought in my head and I just
want a nice, freshly baked blueberry muffin and a coffee.
And a pulse bomb. What?
From Muffin.
That's a surprise to get in the morning. And right now,
wait a minute, this isn't blueberry.
Hold on a second. 3 minutes and 10 seconds so far, and it is AKTM at least. Just the control up here is really nice. It stops THK from taking the same ground, which is very important. And that's going to just stop, you know, YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT from potentially bleeding out members as THK is forced to play on the ground.
They're in low casualties so far. No one's ever really died here. It's just sort of set plays that have been pushed back a little, but it is Hayamin going down at a very unfortunate time. Sound barrier out for Xavier as they look to commit, and indeed they commit hard. The reason it was so unfortunate for Hayamin going down was they lose the nano boost in that, and now it's just AKTM with the Dragon Blade going to have to really show up. He does kill THK.
It's tempting, he might use it.
Mech. He may just, but no, dead to Azalea. Unfortunately, not going to have a chance. That was on the cusp of being some, like, wizard turnaround play, but unfortunately, no such luck, and Xavier will secure the cap.
Again, appreciate the discipline here because, you know, in a lot of cases, and I was thinking about it, you could tell AKTM was maybe even thinking about it himself, but do you go for the hero play here? Because if it works, man, that's a highlight reel and a half, and one that would really benefit him as well. But YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT playing the higher dice rolls here, more numbers, more ultimates, 5, nearly 6 coming up. Xavier, you don't expect them to snowball through despite winning that last cap, just because YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT have banked up so much.
And that's the one thing you can say, you know, you have to compliment AKTM on the discipline here. Indeed, all across the board, he's not made undisciplined plays trying to go for these really big hero pushes, which we do often see out of quote-unquote superstar DPSs. Now, on this defense, YOSHIMOTO kind of have all the tools stacked in their favor.
Look at this high ground control, very important for both sides here, but it is the ultimate from YOSHIMOTO that come out first.
Yeah, they only commit the 2 so far, and it could just be the only ones they need to commit. Very conservative defense. I like it out of YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT.
And this is kind of what we've seen out of Xavier so far as well. When Xavier went on this sort of defensive play, don't have to use too many ultimates. When they do, they get some big wins. They get kind of wins no matter what. For YOSHIMOTO, this is the kind of gameplay you want as well. Nice and tidy, just well kind of button up, put in a ribbon, whatever you want, tie it up, send it away in a box. 4 ultimates still, only had to use 2 for the previous defense. Xavier, though, they also saved up.
Put it in a muffin wrapper and stick it in a takeaway bag.
And blow it up in a pulse bomb.
All right. Now on the next push, Muffin, speaking of, getting a little unfortunately low. YOSHIMOTO, they don't want to be the first to use their ultimates, but unfortunately they have no choice here. Yeah. Just going to have to go ahead and commit in with Mason. And it does force some out of Xavier, but ideally YOSHIMOTO want to draw even more out of Xavier. AKTM looking for the ideal moment for a Dragon Blade. The high ground control is here for Xavier. Now AKTM goes and trying to test that, but he's low. Only gets Dreamer. Doesn't get the DPSs. And speaking of, with that, THK can now rain down from above. Has to give some respect up for Muffin on the flank, and unfortunately because of that gets little to nothing with that tactical visor. It's only Hayamin going down on the very back side of it. They get a 3rd, but you do have to consider YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT, especially with those kills, should be able to stabilize here.
You'll take the 3rd though. You'll be happy you even got that off of 1 push. You got time to work with 3 55, we'll call it 4 minutes even if you want to be generous. You want to look at 1/3 per minute. You don't even need that right now. You just need 86.5. And Xavier are working their way up towards it. THK now going to the Genji. The first time so far in the series we're seeing a full dive out of Xavier. This could be a little bit different, but I am looking forward to it.
And on the whole as well, I mean, that was about as close to an even fight as you're going to get in this situation. Yeah, walking away with a third, plenty enough. But now it is Yoshimoto who are going to be cycling into those ultimates. Will find themselves once again on the advantageous side of that economy, which means Xavier do need to play a bit of catch-up before they can maybe make the real push for their next third.
Time is of the essence for Xavier here as well, because if they wait any longer, Yoshimoto will be going into some of those ultimates.
Oh, dive!
Game's quick, amazing dive, yeah. Primal. Oh,
look at that, he jumped back, and they clocked him just as Primal came up. That could well result in a push that secures their second third for them. Self-destruct out. It looks like it may just be, no, Yoshimoto and Count are going to bite back hard with the likes of Maffin and AKTM. Do not ever count them out. And they start banking up some ultimates as well. AKTM committed the Dragon Blade to secure the fight. Don't know if it was necessary, but it worked. It counted. It secured the fight. I can understand the logic there. They do have other ultimates at their disposal. Are a little leaner than they would like to be here, though, I think.
It's this kind of second time that we've seen Dragon Blade committed when AKTM is kind of on low health, and maybe part of that is he started on high health and Xavier just responded so quickly, he just got chunked down, but otherwise, starting to look a little bit risky now, and it has been the case that both of these Dragon Blades in the past couple of fights have been, you know, maybe one pick and then a straight death, so it is a little bit tricky. Xavier now working up towards their own ultimates, working on getting that second tick.
Now Xavier with those ultimates. Oh, early kill on Bep as well. This should be the opening that they need. They've got the advantage now as their crucial ultimates cycle in. Self-destruction not quite finding anything. Hireman coming to get that nano boost as well. THK's Dragon Blade that could well be the superstar one is where it closes things out. Second, third committed. THK can just keep these members kettled in their base. AKTM cannot break out. Doesn't even need the Dragon Blade. It's all just style points. Bep rushing on, but the moment that Transcendence ends, he gets cut to bits by the hand of THK. Indeed, it is Genji Day, but not for AKTM. It's for the other guy whose name is only letters. And with Xavier, Xavier looking actually slowly getting turned around upon. They haven't quite got the overwhelming advantage they need just yet.
Barrier's big though.
Yeah,
the barrier's big. They're able
big.
to pick up return kills, which is a little bit important.
This is AKTM's time to shine. He's got to get a lot of work done with this. But once again, he just gets chunked low at the start of it and can't find anything. Puts the blade away. But they have all 6 members available now. Xavier, they should start getting pushed back here just bit by bit. The stabilization is there for Yoshimoto and Count.
Xavier need to decide now whether this is going to be a full retreat or a full committal, because with less than 1 minute remaining, they need as much time to regroup and get this next fight after reset as possible. AKTM, maybe he doesn't get the 6k out of the Dragon Blade, but he certainly knows how to get kills outside of the Dragon Blade. Nice deflex there, nice dash kills, nice resets for Yoshimoto and Count, forcing the full reset on Xavier.
That was within 6% of a clinched series for Xavier, so you've also got to credit Yoshimoto just hanging on, or indeed not even hanging on, because it was more convincing than that. It was well handled.
Final moments here, 22 seconds now remaining. High ground control definitely in Xavier's favor. Working up to that next Dragon Blade, and so is AKTM, so the first pick here going to be absolutely vital.
Oh, he's low. He wants to use that Dragon Blade. There's Coalescence, and he opens it up. He's low again, but the Coalescence is just drilled on him. But once again, not finding many targets. Gets Dreamer, though. That could be enough. Looking to go can, open it. No. THK cuts him down instead. And Xavier now going to live or die by THK's Dragon Blade, but it looks like it's going to be die. Not enough members, just barely. Yoshimoto and Count, that fight is the difference between losing the series and keeping it alive, but it is going to be them keeping it alive on Hanamura. Now 2-1. And the chance to turn it all the way around and bring us to a Game 5.
Yeah, just not enough firepower at the end there for Xavier Esports. Just not enough resources remaining. Couldn't get the high string of kills. Couldn't find the momentum play. Yoshimoto and Count, for like all the hardships that they've had so far in the game, for all the difficult moments they've had, this was a pretty solid defense and a pretty, I guess, definitely the worst offense that Xavier have had so far in this entire series. It was still right down to the wire though.
And you've got to really respect Yoshimoto and Count. I mean, the fact that even in the best-looking fights for Xavier, they were only ever getting a third. Even when the opening was a blowout, no matter how the fight ended up playing out, Yoshimoto and Count, they are fighting in such a way here that they're just not quite dying. And it's not like they're just sort of desperately hanging on, hoping to get a point where they can bite back and stabilize. They're actually hanging on in a very convincing way. They're often fighting back, getting the right sorts of kills in the right sorts of places, even when things are going pear-shaped at the start, even if they go pear-shaped partway through, whether they're starting with a big advantage, whether they're starting at a disadvantage. You've got to credit that there is this consistent factor to their defense, and that is exactly what just won them the map.
I also got to look at Xavier Esports and think, you know, changing compositions and changing playstyles midway through that offense on B was a little bit weird. Let's take a look now at what the final map's going to be. And it is going to be Dorado, this time by Xavier Esports pick. And sort of going back to the compositional change, you look at how Xavier were winning the entire series. They had great disengaged play out of the sort of Tracer Soldier playstyle or Sombra Soldier playstyle, which they also had. They could have continued that on Hanamura B. Look, do the setups, do the high ground setups with the Soldier that either Zaylee and THK could pull off. We're pretty confident they could do that. That looks like a way they could have won. So I'm a little bit questioning the Genji Tracer dive that they decided to switch to because it just didn't look as good.
Yeah, but hey, what's done is done. And yeah, they do pick Dorado. Also the first time they actually have to take a map pick here. And I do have to correct you. This could not be the last map, actually, because, of course, if this does end up getting won by YOSHIMOTO Encounnt, we go to the tiebreaker on Oasis. So certainly last map to be selected, last map of this first 4. But we could see a repeat of that first series of the day, where, you know, went to that last one, could have been tied up, but it ended up being closed out in convincing fashion. I do want to consider as well, this is now going to be untested territory between these two teams, because the last time we were on a payload map, it was on Numbani, where the payload never actually got moving. So it could come to pass that YOSHIMOTO are an incredible payload team, really great high momentum gameplay, could be the complete opposite, or will be revealed.
Second time we've had that scenario today as well. We started HKA and Bazaar, the same sort of thing. Just didn't get to see the payload for the first half of that match, and now, you know, we finally get to see what happens here for YOSHIMOTO Encounnt, and furthermore for AKTM. Genji now seems to be the sort of favored pick that he's had for the majority of the evening now. Bep looks like he wants to start onto the Sombra as well, so finally get to see a little bit of Sombra gameplay out of YOSHIMOTO Encounnt to sort of just see, you know, how far they can stretch that. And a little bit different for Xavier as well, because we haven't seen them with the sort of Junkrat or Rissa composition just that they've just done kind of Diva, Winston, Soldier, Sombra, or Soldier, Tracer. And this is going to be a different flavor.
You do just want to consider, though, just the Lucio could be a little bit to their detriment, just based off what Xavier are running here, that sort of spam damage. Lucio's going to have a hard time keeping everyone topped up, at least until Bep is set up with a few crucial health packs, which is really going to become more of a factor in the courtyard. So this opening stretch is going to be the hard part for YOSHIMOTO.
And I agree with you, because there's a lot more healing to be done when you have to push the cart. It's not like an assault map where you just rush the cap and then move on snowball through. Like, the cart here defines how quickly you move through the map, so you will be taking a lot more damage than just Iron Man can heal up.
Yeah, but they have sort of got through that opening stretch, now having to come under this choke point. And actually not too much damage being taken on the whole by YOSHIMOTO. They are sort of taking advantage of the fact that the payload itself heals, and they just break through with absolute precision. Those 4 kills are plenty enough to crack the choke point and bring us down to the courtyard, where now Bep can get very much set up with those health packs.
Sort of back in that zone where, you know, early in the evening we said, look, you don't need a second healer if you just don't take damage. And for YOSHIMOTO Encounnt, finding where they can get those early pickoffs and finding where they can get those dives is very important. AKTM, though, sent back to the respawn room. This might just put a spanner in the works.
Yeah, at least for the time being, but Bep does start trading one back. And they dislodge THK, they crack Queen as well, they follow up on THK, and that's pretty much no contest across that courtyard, Despite that, you know, really nice looking headshot, doesn't really matter if the rest of the team just dies.
Yeah, it's an impressive shot by THK, but the rest just kind of wasn't there. Azalea now just briefly onto the Genji, switching back onto the Tracer, so for Xavier, maybe this is it. Maybe they just got to go back to this original kind of playstyle that we expected out of them. The only difference is THK is on a Widow, but we'll take that right now.
AKTM hovering around the side along with Maffin. They are looking for a flank, looking for something that will crack this wide open, but Queen is ready for them. We said, hey, maybe YOSHIMOTO would have a great, you know, momentum-based team. I mean, so far, they're looking good on this payload map.
Got the ultimates now to play with as well. Sound barrier already being committed into this card. It's still moving.
Another headshot onto AKTM. Yeah, exactly.
The
payload's still moving. That being said, though, Yoshimoto basically committed 2 ultimates to get a little bit more distance on the payload. Xavier didn't actually commit anything of their own. They may just be okay with that.
Yeah. Anything of note anyway, Infrasight was in there as much as that's worth, and Bip now onto the Sombra with, he's been a Sombra the whole time, but with the EMP available, going to be looking where they can drop that one into the next fight. Likely you want to see that combo with AKTM's Dragonblade, but it will be for the next fight as this one. Xavier do just manage to hold on to their positioning.
I don't think that's where Bep was wanting to translocate back to.
Yeah.
He'd actually retreated further back from that, sort of back towards the courtyard, and actually him dying there makes it a really unfortunate stagger. They'd only lost Saint, and went, okay, let's just back off from that, not lose anyone else here, you know, gear up for another go. Losing Bep kind of slows that down, but now an opening pick on Azalea is a good way to start.
Cart's not quite past that bridge archway area just yet, so that's got to be the goal. As soon as it gets past the archway, it opens up a lot of flanking options. The options right now look like EMP and Dragonblade.
There it goes, the EMP, and here comes the Dragonblade, and it's already off to great effect, cutting down Dreamer and Azalea. That's what AKTM has been holding on to. That's going to be the gong sounding on behalf of Yoshimoto Encounт. Going to be able to get the point B cap off that, only being stalled up for a couple of minutes in that. Plenty of time.
Oh, yeah, this is awful for Xavier. So they spawned at the front of C, which means they can get caught out if they're not too careful. But Xavier now switching back onto the Soldier Tracer gameplay. This is where they are the strongest, and this needs to be the composition that Yoshimoto is concerned about.
That was a great stick onto Dreamer, unfortunately running it back into Azalea as well. Kind of makes up for AKTM going down because he can rejoin the fray. Saint can throw in the self-destruct to preserve his mech if so needed, but it doesn't even need to be done just yet. Mason, Primal Rage in the nick of time. I don't know if the self-destruct was committed. I actually think it was, and Saint now remeching. They're still keeping a bit of distance on this payload, but not quite breaking through Xavier. Now Xavier hitting back, getting the kills up. Yoshimoto, I don't actually think committing those ultimates ended up helping them a whole lot. They did keep members alive, but they didn't actually get payload distance for it. Now they just really lean on ults.
And yeah, definitely lean on ultimates. They lost a decent amount of time as well, and it's time that Xavier really need to rebuild this defense, reset up on high ground, on the positioning where Soldier's going to be very effective. And now we're back to kind of where Xavier were winning on maps 1 and 2. This is how Xavier look when they are in control, and that's exactly how they like to play as well. For Yoshimoto, they got to find a way to break through THK. That's been the biggest problem. And
until they can, that payload is just not going to go anywhere. I mean, as I say that, Saint starts pushing it, of course. But it's only a little bit of distance. It's
like a meter. It's not quite anything to write home about.
There goes AKTM, trying to write home, writing in blood, but only gets Tay, and robots don't bleed. So, unfortunately, Yoshimoto Encounт just going to get completely stopped up once again. The ultimates they committed just kind of got them nowhere.
You look at this and think Xavier should just honestly be playing this all the time. The way they just push back Yoshimoto Encounт, the way AKTM wants to dive on the Dragonblade, the way the rest of the team wants to get onto THK, that's a huge note from Xavier, who just says, here's a Helix rocket to the face, here's tanks just going to stop you, you're not getting anywhere.
There is the EMP though, and this time they do get straight onto THK. Unfortunately, the tanks cannot do too much to block the damage when their abilities don't work, but it's not quite a sweep just yet for Yoshimoto Encounт. They do catch Queen now as well, starting to get back underway. And this is some crucial kills for them on the backside of that fight, but they still need to get those ultimates up. Xavier will get another defense.
Now looking to push this card at least around, you know, again, under the archer. It seems it's always under some sort of bridge that's the breaking point for current distance, just by the way, something I noticed. And this is about the time now when Yoshimoto Encounт can sort of push it a little bit further, got the pressure on Xavier as the sound barrier comes down.
A lot of ultimates committed early from Yoshimoto Encounт, and Xavier just kind of holding on to all the cards here. Commit their defensive ultimates first. Now the tactical visor, it's enough to drill down to AKTM and Hireman, and now Mappin for good measure. And off the back of that, Yoshimoto have to be back up once again. They made it expensive for Xavier though, and that is going to be important eventually. They can maybe eke out an advantage.
We're now looking at Yoshimoto perhaps either pushing it out now immediately, which is probably not likely the case, and more likely we're going to see this go over to overtime with a couple more ultimates now coming online for Yoshimoto Encounт, and this is very prime time to be winning for Yoshimoto when Xavier are down on ults themselves. Like you said, a lot of ultimates committed into the previous fight for Yoshimoto. Now their power swing comes into effect.
They want to see that Dragonblade go off to great effect. Trying to get the deflects out onto THK, tries to go in and slack him in the back. But no, it's Azalea who goes down to the Coalescence first. AKTM found nothing, but he did draw attention away, and that was attention that Xavier kind of lost focus. Yeah, the cart, that's the important thing. Xavier needs to stop it. They pile back out. Olivier self-destruct. Try and zone out these members. Doesn't get any kills for it, but they catch THK. They're still keeping their members alive. That's the kills they need. And they've still got enough time on the clock here that this may not happen in overtime, which would be a big boon for YOSHIMOTO Encounnt, all things considered. Xavier Esports just trying to pile onto the cart. Even the Doomfist coming out here, but it's just not enough. AKTM, within an inch of his life, even gets a kill on Azalea as the cart rolls across the finish line.
And 22 seconds remaining as also we didn't quite make it to the overtime. And in YOSHIMOTO's favor as well, this is exactly I guess the more beneficial result than actually finishing in overtime. It's a little bit of a weird defense coming out of Xavier Esports. Usually you see them pull back a little bit and then respond, punish divers, get the counter trades. This time around though, AKTM dived on top of THK, who kind of disappeared. A little bit weird that AKTM couldn't find THK, but they still got Azalea. They snowballed that kill onto other members, and by the time THK came back out, he couldn't do enough.
Unfortunately, that was the case. And even prior to that, just getting chased down by AKTM, you can see the prioritization now that YOSHIMOTO are putting onto THK. And I think this is where the comparison to Flash Wolves again becomes apt. When we saw, when we used to see Zonda on that Soldier 76, exactly the same situation. It was dive and kill Zonda, and the entire team was don't let Zonda die. And we're seeing a similar thing here with THK.
That is absolutely correct, but there was one X factor that unfortunately for Xavier, and honestly, no BM here or anything, just being realistic. Azalea, as good as he is not Bacon.
Exactly.
That's the difference. As much as they sort of imitate, and I got to use the word imitate here because they're very close to what Flash Wolves has shown, at least in terms of play style. They're very good at understanding how to play, but the difference is they don't have that kind of X factor because yes, the Soldier gets dived. Yes, THK, if he's on Soldier, or Azalea, if he's on Soldier, will get a lot of pressure, as Zonda did on Flash Wolves. But Bacon Jake, as the sort of masterclass player he was always able to take advantage. And that's the kind of difference right now. We don't see that in Xavier, and that's why they're not getting the same result.
And that's what you got to say. That was how Flash Wolves played. While the Soldier is getting dove, live or die, the Tracer is going to be doing a ton of work to the rest of your team. So yeah, we need to see them starting to emulate that a little bit if we can really start comparing the two, at least in terms of total playstyle and, like you said, the results it yields. But that's a different thing altogether because this time we are seeing like the extra long and then very short gun.
Very short. Why is it? I think Doomfist is a very short gun.
Extremely
Reaper's
short
the
gun.
super short gun.
And then there's I suppose Reinhardt would be
Reinhardt is the shortest
gun of all because it's only a hammer. It's not even a gun.
Not even a gun. Oh,
not even a gun. The short hammers are really just extremely short guns,
Oh man.
And this is the weirdest tangent.
Thank you for that, by the way.
Anytime, buddy. YOSHIMOTO, AKTM just still fishing for these headshots. At least us to. Oh!
Yeah, he finds one, but not the one he's looking for.
Finds a bullet in his own head. That's rough. And THK, I mean, AKTM just kind of spent a bit too long. Sort of sat there scoping.
Oh, okay.
That just mapped. That was sick. And now Xavier just getting aggressive, going for the route here. YOSHIMOTO just kind of crumbling off the back of AKTM, getting headshot.
Now, this is a lot of nice fast pressure coming out of Xavier as well. And AKTM's now learning how to get one back on the THK. And it's a battle between. Okay, alrighty.
As Dreamer was going for the res, I mean, I don't want to say rookie mistake, but dude, your buddy just got headshot up there. AKTM getting forced off that high ground. Now they have recognized the threat, but he's able to just wheel back around. Should be able to pull himself back up to said high ground. That's a self-destruct. This is a lot of ultimates being committed though out of Xavier, and it hasn't quite yielded a camp just yet. YOSHIMOTO are still in this, and Mason coming up with the Primal Rage can store it out for quite a while as well, but unfortunately Bep dying with the Coalescence means that they're maybe just a bit lacking in tools, and I think Mason's smart to hold on to that ultimate.
Yeah, and it does feel a little bit inevitable at that sort of point there, Xavier getting the huge string of kills that they were mostly on the back of Queen. THK eating a Venom Mine kind of sucks because that just gives information over to AKTM, which is gone because he changes to Genji anyway, so, well, who cares about that? We'll now have to see exactly how these players want to approach each other in this new matchup.
He's like, instead of just trying to headshot him, he's just going to reflect THK's headshot back.
Yeah, that's one way to outsnipe somebody.
It's like the most brutal way to do it, I think. It's like when
Definitely the most impressive.
Or like when you deflect the helix rocket, it's like turning it against you. And this is just a very scrappy fight already from the outset. Both teams a little bit kind of split in focus. The payload isn't moving though. That is the crucial factor in among all this.
YOSHIMOTO's doing a great sort of just job of stalling things up and also just finding a couple of even trades there that's just going to put a stop to what Xavier can do. The one thing about Widowmaker, the one thing about THK is, look, if he doesn't have clear enough sightlines, when a brawl kind of just breaks out, it gets a little bit more difficult for him to play in that sort of scenario, and this is kind of where Soldier you'd rather see him in. He kind of shines a little bit better in the chaos.
Already now, Xavier winding back up for another push, and it's them scattering YOSHIMOTO this time around. But YOSHIMOTO just weathering the storm. No one dead just yet. They're trying to get the pressure on the back line as self-destruct really to no effect. Let's see if maybe Saint can have a better run of it. No, he cannot. Now, though, the trade's starting to come in. And it's just the same thing, really scrappy, ongoing fights. This time, though, Xavier are coming out the upper hand. They will get the payload back moving for it.
A couple of impressive shots there by THK as well, just to clear the high ground and clear up the threats from YOSHIMOTO Encount. But speaking of threat, it's going to be AKTM coming online with that Dragon Blade. Now, he has been reasonably hit or miss with this so far. He's had one really great one and a few really disappointing ones. As Infrasight now going to come out from THK to read what YOSHIMOTO want to do here.
I love when the camera swaps teams like halfway through the line for an ultimate. So you hear like both halves of it. It's really disconcerting. That's going to be the quick engage. Once again, just really scrappy. Nothing. They're trading supports now. Blood is now being drawn, but we're not seeing that same directed, decisive engage out of either of these teams anymore. And it feels like they're just kind of scrapping a bit, brawling on the payload and hoping that one of them becomes the better of it. And this time it does seem to be the case that YOSHIMOTO will get another sort of semi-stabilization, at least for the time being, and that closer respawn will really start to mount in their favor here. Xavier slow to getting beaten back, but not without, you know, continually punching back every single time. There is a point where you've got to consider this maybe just becomes time wasted for Xavier.
It sort of depends. That missed pulse bomb is going to be a regretful one for Mappin as well. It's looking like the easiest one in the world, but not the case. Xavier still managed to get a decent amount of counter trades here. They just kept the pressure up. They never fully reset. They never fully gave YOSHIMOTO Encounter breathing space.
But at the same time, Xavier haven't given themselves breathing space. And now that's maybe starting to become a problem. YOSHIMOTO getting the catch on Tay. Now with Xavier having committed ultimates, losing at this point has become a very expensive affair, both in terms of the ultimates they had committed, the ult charge they gave over, and the time they've lost.
The biggest thing here is, and I do want to highlight the time factor, because at 1 minute remaining, even if Xavier camp, there's not a lot of time to work with for C, which is oftentimes, in fact, I'm just going to say is the most often the hardest point to camp on Dorado of all the points, and that shouldn't be a surprise, but it just says, look, you need the time, you need the resources, and with 40-something seconds remaining, even if they cap, it just doesn't seem like it's going to be enough.
This is one of the worst places for the payload to be stopped up as well, because of that defender's respawn advantage that here works in favor of YOSHIMOTO Encount. It's become so much harder. I mean, as much as you get new angles to go in and approach this fight at, becomes, I mean, so many times we see teams unable to get past this last point, and Xavier trying to back off now before they lose anyone. They are running short on time.
YOSHIMOTO have a lot of resources here to put into this, well, especially as Queen just goes down right now.
Yeah, that is rough. Double Transcendence out in the middle of the fight. AKTM committing the Dragon Blade. Sound Barrier on him as well. Blade. And I think just those few kills, yeah, that's plenty enough of a numerical advantage to secure the fight out. And indeed, Xavier will not get any further than that. YOSHIMOTO carrying it on. It's not going to be a repeat of the first series. It is going to be tying up the series, and it is going to be taking us to a Game 5 back onto Control. We will break this one up on Oasis.
A second time now, twice in a row, the final match of the evening in the opening week of Contenders Pacific. We go to a map 5, and pretty exciting stuff. You know, we're not seeing too many 4-0s. We've seen a 3-1 today as well, and this is starting to look like a possible reverse sweep, and that would be a huge start for YOSHIMOTO Encounter.
I mean, we've also got to say, now that it is tied up, this is not new team, same Japan, no matter how you slice it. We talked about how Xavier were one of the better looking teams to come in from trials. This is now Yoshimoto taking them to match point. Even if this ends up being a loss for them now, there were many a Japanese team in OPC that were barely getting, map wins against some of the lowest teams in the standing. This is a brand new thing.
At the same time, though, you do want to get this win here. That's very important because the unfortunate thing for sure is there have been many close calls in the past where, look, we've been to a map 5 and it just wasn't close enough. Close but no cigar is kind of the unfortunate thing.
Yeah, because smoking's bad for you.
Exactly. So, wait. No, the opposite of that. You want the cigar in this example.
But
I mean, you won't smoke it.
Yeah, you just want to have it.
I got it.
You do that thing that they do in movies where they sniff it first, like,
and then it ends.
Like,
you just end. You know,
that smells like lung cancer. Like, what are they doing?
Okay, but the point is, you do actually want to get the win here because I think while it would be good to say, look, for Yoshimoto Encounnt, going to map 5 is nice. That's still at 0-1 in terms of match record. And unfortunately, if we want to look at the track record of Japan as a country in the Pacific region, it's been a lot of those where they've been close, but they don't get the win. So got to get the win.
Yeah, and it is also a tough group, right? So, it doesn't really mean much if you just lose every single series 3-2, right? You actually do need to pick up wins somewhere in among all that.
They actually got the easier group, which funny enough, so they should have...
Well... easy, like it's a really tough distinction to make, right? Like it almost sounds
observation.
Certainly, and we do have to also speak frankly to that regard, But there are really tough teams in this group. Is sort of my overall point there. So you got to be picking up those wins here. Otherwise, you aren't going to find yourself in that position where you can start pushing for maybe a top 4 finish, which I mean, unsurprisingly, is every single team's goal here, but. Certainly if you want to look at Yoshimoto Encounт breaking the mold of Japanese teams in Pacific circuits, actually making it into a playoffs would be a pretty stark difference from what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and it's to be honest, and again, no BM whatsoever, but Liberty Supreme finished OPC Season 2 with not a single match win that is. So look, if Yoshimoto Encounт even get that, they've already surpassed the previous iteration that we've seen. So it's not like a super high standard to break, but I think it says a lot. I think it says a lot about the kind of legacy that Yoshimoto Encounт when coming into Contenders.
And we talk about, maybe a bit of the national pressure on their shoulders. And I guarantee you that is a factor for this team. I guarantee you they are very, very much aware of that. Actually picking up a win here kind of clears that instantly. Suddenly, you are free of that burden moving forward because for every subsequent loss, the weight of that burden just increases. You want to remove it as a factor altogether. Right now, even a 3-2 loss, I actually think would do that to an extent. But certainly the victory, especially a hard-fought, well-earned kind of thing that you get with a reverse sweep, would really do that for these guys.
I think importantly as well against Xavier Esports, who, I think we can both sort of look at and say a top 4 team in Group B. They look like a top 4 team so far. Even if they lose here, I'd say probably still at least contesting for top 4, if not actually being in there themselves. Again, this is meant to be the quote unquote slightly easier group. Favorites of this group are probably blank, but after that, you've got a lot of room for everyone else.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well. You've got to consider, look, Xavier, win or lose, are probably looking like a top 4 team here. So if it is lose, you've got to start considering that actually that would make Yoshimoto Encounт, by extension, potentially a top 4 team. Theoretically, 1 place in the standings above Xavier. I mean, granted, this starts to become very, very conjectural the more we kind of extrapolate all this, but I think it's a completely fair thing to mention at this juncture as we stand now at a tiebreaker, the second one already in only 2 days of games.
Yeah, and the other thing that's quite nice to see is just how close some of these are getting, and reverse sweep is also just a crazy thing. And as much as I don't want to keep going back to looking at trials results and stuff like that, but that is where we saw Xavier coming through. That is where we've seen a lot of these new teams coming through. Xavier have certainly been in this boat before where it's just like they look like they're winning and then like somewhere in the middle it's just like, okay, they dropped the map, but they're still at match point. It's like, oh, well, they dropped the second map. It's like, it's getting a little bit,
And then they closed it. I mean, we actually saw exactly that, if I'm not mistaken, when they played Bazaar, during trials. So, like, that is a very real factor for these guys. And look, maybe that does mean they actually win this one. And you've also got to consider, last we saw on Control, they did beat Yoshimoto Encounт. So you know, even if you're just drawing that comparison, you can maybe expect the 3-2 all up. But then if that does come to pass, you've got to consider, right, is this just a team that only ends up winning on control and hybrid? Like, you certainly don't want that to be the case for starters. You can't say that empirically, even if they do win here, but it would you know, leave a bit of uncertainty about these guys, you know? Or maybe you've got to look at the other side of that of like, okay, or maybe is it that Yoshimoto are only a team that can win on Escort and Assault?
And it's just really strange for a team like Xavier, right? Because you look clean for 2 maps in a row, 2 game modes in a row. And as a reminder, Numbani was just a full shutout, by the way. That was a super clean game out of them. Then, you know, Hanamura and Dorada is just like, what happened? Like, what's going on with these guys? It's just, it doesn't quite add up that you can play so well on one map against a team that just looked like they were completely falling apart. And then, you know, the other team just kind of gets the win. It's like, well...
Yeah, and let's be clear. If they had played as they had on Numbani, not just on these last 2 maps, but also actually on Nepal before that, this would have been a 4-0 shutout, and a quick one at that. So you're completely right. Like, what's going wrong here that isn't the, you know, the consistent level? Look, the consistent level is still a good one, but like, if your peak is that high, and then your consistency, you know, your level of consistent play is low enough that you then drop 2 maps, what's going wrong?
Well, Suntag's back, so...
Hello.
Suntag was here when they got that nice clean 2-0 in the first 2 maps. Look, I'm not gonna single any guy out.
It's not like it's all ahead.
We've done a lot of like, okay, talked a lot about AKTM, talked a lot
Let's talk about someone else. Let's talk about Olivier.
Player. AKTM's, he's a banned topic now. He's talking about BIP. It sounds like an alternate boop. Anyway.
I was thinking like, just BIP.
No, but what I am trying to say is,
like
Azalea was sort of swapped in for Suntag for maps 3 and 4. So now Xavier want to go back to Suntag, and it does make sense because when you think about what is unique about what this player brings, he seems to be the clear Sombra player, because when he's here, he's just playing Sombra.
And I think that's a smart call here by Xavier as well. This is a Sombra map. Let's be completely clear. And it's interesting that Yoshimoto actually aren't pulling one out of their own, because I do believe that they have a potential Sombra player, and already to great effect. It's an unfortunate boop onto Tay. And actually, they didn't quite get the closeout on Saint or Mason, only just getting the mech now, and it's actually Xavier kind of under pressure here on the side. That wasn't a queen pun, by the way. That was...
I'm still waiting for one. I might get one. You'll have to wait for
it. You've got to wait until another one bites the dust.
Damn, you got 2 in before I got one.
Yep, you've got to hurry up, man. You know,
Alrighty, okay. Speaking of hurry up right now, AKTM's somewhere in a hurry at the moment.
Dashing back and forth.
Xavier Esports just kind of casually losing that first cap, but they are able to get these sort of troops back in.
Casually losing is kind of the right way to put that.
Casually winning.
Yeah. And now casually winning it, exactly. This is just, you know, very casual team. You know, they're wearing dressing gowns and slacks. You know, but it is actually the fight win for them, is they just kind of get a couple of picks here and there. And that didn't even look like it was a concerted push or anything. It just kind of looked like there were some individual picks in different parts of the map that is now resulting in a cap. 33%, sorry, the way of Yoshimoto Encounт already, though. So that is actually something that will play into their favor later on.
It didn't look like it was out of Xavier's control. Yes, they let the camp go. Yes, they lost a couple early members, but it just seemed like, you know, they were calm and collected about they were still in the fight, they were still in the cap, or rather still in the game, able to get that cap afterwards, you know, very detonated career style where, okay, we'll give away a little bit of percentage points, but ultimately we will swing it back and we will make sure you don't get a big advantage. Talking about advantage though, Yoshimoto Encounт, ton of ultimates.
Yeah, and I think that's, by the way, just a factor in general with a Sombra. Sometimes you just kind of have to wait until you can get more health packs hacked, you can get some EMP charge up. And that is a really cheap fight for Xavier. That was only a sound barrier. Yoshimoto just didn't choose to commit any ultimates to that.
Which is crazy because Yoshimoto was so heavily favored. And now you got to consider the consequence of this, because the consequence is Xavier didn't have these ultimates. They only got them because they won the fight, because they just had crazy damage output, cleaned up a bunch of kills. But had Yoshimoto Encounт just used their own ultimates, committed, won that fight, got the cap back around, Xavier would have probably still been behind.
And I think crucially among the ultimates that came up was the EMP, but never mind, it doesn't get followed up on, unfortunately. So the team was just kind of distracted by AKTM, who's just retreated. And now Yoshimoto looking to at least try and get the upper hand here. This is a really bizarre fight already because both teams seem to just be having different fights in different parts of the map. There is no centralized brawl or anything, but it is Xavier, once again, just coming out the better of it. And we're not seeing any concerted effort out of YOSHIMOTO to actually assault this point.
That was a huge commitment, as I guess, from both sides, realistically, because you're right, the EMP didn't have the effect, but ultimately Xavier Esports had better ultimate value out of the rest of what was committed, whereas YOSHIMOTO Encounter, despite pushing in 4, didn't have that value.
All right, well, there's the Dragon Blade out from AKTM, and it's got to have a lot of value. Certainly they cannot afford another fight loss here at 99%. They do catch him, but he loses his life. They have got just enough, I think, to swing it in their advantage. But Queen's Transcendence, what? Primal Rage could stall it. I like that he chose to not use it, though.
Nice to save as much as you can there. I'm also a really big fan of the fact that that's the second time that Tay as a Zenyatta players kicked AKTM in the face as a Genji during a Dragon Blade, and now AKTM back onto the McCree, rather. We saw a little bit of this in Nepal, and I have to stress only a little bit because he swapped off pretty quickly after not finding enough success.
As you know, Zenyatta is just kind of a great sort of mascot, if you will, a microcosm of how Xavier plays. He's very calm, and then suddenly he kicks you in the face. And
specifically in the face, like not anywhere else in the body, specifically the face.
AKTM,
okay, there it is.
Flashback, yeah, that's what we've been waiting for. I was about to comment on the McCree, but I didn't want to say anything just in case it then under-delivered. But actually off the back of that, they now put themselves firmly ahead. Not ahead in terms of the percentage, but this is now within striking distance of a cap out.
It is also taken into account the EMP double support ultimates coming online for Xavier Esports. That being said, YOSHIMOTO not too shy from theirs either. The EMP, though, could shut everybody down.
He's looking for it. He goes in, commits it. He loses his life for it. The follow-up is not there just yet. And by the way, the sound barrier was able to come out afterwards. Mason gets traded back, though. AKTM trying to do the work, getting pressured out the side, though. Saint loses the mech. Unfortunate for him. We'll be able to get back in, but the self-destruct found nothing. Mason trying to barrel back towards the fight where he can maybe get something done with his Primal Rage, and it's just again scrapping back and forth on the point itself. Self-destruct from Olivier to force YOSHIMOTO to take cover, allows the cap to go the way of Xavier now. YOSHIMOTO, there's Primal Rage at last from Mason, but they're not getting enough with it. YOSHIMOTO, where's the presence? That is unfortunate.
It really is, and at the end there, it's, you know, coming back into it. AKTM just going down before the Deadeye becomes available. Couldn't clean up the kill onto the Tracer, who I believe was THK as well. Just lands a flashbang, doesn't connect the headshot, doesn't clean up the remaining kills, and then dies just before Deadeye becomes available. The other members as well just couldn't quite clinch it through. Primal Rage, I believe, was coming from Queen. Kind of just stalling things up, and then that clutch cap on through in the favor of Xavier, putting YOSHIMOTO on that back foot, and now we're on to what could be the final map of Oasis and AKTM coming back out as that Pharaoh.
Would be a bit of an unfortunate way for it to go, even it up, take it to match point of your own, and then get 2-0'd on the final control by the team. The 2-0 drew on the first one, but it could be a different tune altogether. We have to wait and see, and like you said, Pharaoh now out of AKTM.
We have sort of seen this already before, like AKTM did play Pharaoh into Suntag Navani.
Bep just put to slap, and Queen down in the sort of response kill, but it looks like Xavier still kind of have command of this fight. Tay somehow kicking a Pharaoh in the face, and it looks like with that, Xavier should again be able to establish themselves on the point here quite firmly. That was a very, once again, cool, calm, and collected fight out of them.
And Xavier sticking to just what's working, you know, which comes down to the Tracer Sombra combination. Suntag, he delivered on Nepal, he delivered on Navani, currently delivering on Oasis as well. And if you're YOSHIMOTO Encounter, you got to consider, look, how do we play around this? Genji doesn't quite work super well into Sombra, you get hacked, but then again, neither does Farah. It just seems like if you're YOSHIMOTO Encounter, you're starting to run out of options.
It certainly feels that way. AKTM again just getting pressured out, has to keep Bep in the pocket, which means he can't really be dropping down to help these tanks stay alive as Mason drops. and they're just not finding those avenues in. They are now finding some kills in response, but it's trades, it's even fights, and Xavier, even when they seem to have no members left, they're always getting kills through. The members just aren't dying quickly enough for YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT to really start closing things out. But
maybe a little bit better.
I mean, yeah, maybe, but then the self-destruct that catches AKTM, and now Mappin gets booped off the edge. It's just kind of the same story once again. There isn't enough of an overwhelming advantage for YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT to cap the point. Even if they do so, it's going to have been long and messy and expensive.
And that last part is, I think, very important here. And expensive not in just terms of what ults you've used, resources, but I think expensive in terms of objective, because look at that, 65% now. YOSHIMOTO entered that like 20, 30% ago. That long fight went for so long, and it just favors Xavier. The longer this goes on for us, as long as Xavier come out on top, they get the percentage, and that's what matters.
Yeah, I mean, this is YOSHIMOTO at match point. If they lose this map, that's it. And now looking for the angle on the Rocket Barrage. This is the fight that they have been looking for. They're getting the kills through very decisively. And it's like they know they've got ultimates that they can commit to close out the fight, so they go in with more decisiveness. And it's that very decisiveness that is resulting in fight wins, where, funnily enough, they don't have to use ultimates.
They can get this one cheaply. That'd be pretty nice as well. Only 2 committed here, and finally at 97%. Not quite as nice as 98, but you'll take it anyway if you're Xavier. YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT will certainly take the cap no matter what comes through. This is the kind of phase in the game where it gets a little bit tricky for YOSHIMOTO. Yet they do have some ultimates to play with, but they got to go up against an EMP again, and they can't afford to lose a single fight.
They need to find Sontag and kill him quickly, or not get too much. Get hit by the EMP. Not much getting hit by that Rocket Barrage either, but it is, it's going to be Xavier starting to close it out regardless. Again, we're just seeing this scrappy back and forth, where the divers of YOSHIMOTO are still catching the supports, but the frontliners of Xavier are just doing inherently more work, as that's looking to be close to a clean sweep, just shy of a gong ring, and at 97%. Is there anyone around here from YOSHIMOTO that can force it to 100? Able to get onto it just in time to stall it out. Self-destruct needs to do work, but they've already lost Saint. He can't get back in the mech. Now it is the trickle on for YOSHIMOTO. Mason down. Last few members barreling in. It's going to be AKTM and Mappin, both getting onto the point and probably both losing their lives here. Hayamin as well, bet to follow. And there's just not enough presence at any one time. No overwhelming advantage, no nothing. And Xavier, backs against the wall, but still as collected as ever, will finally close out the series, having been at match point for about the last hour. And
exactly, and unlike me, they just didn't look like they sweat that much during the last portion as well, which is very important for this team, because you got to think of it. Like, look,
you are a very sweaty man.
It's true, especially under lights. But enough about me sort of highlighting that about myself.
Yeah. Now anyone who hadn't noticed it is going to notice it.
Oh yeah, trust me, it's. Look, if you hadn't noticed it, I'm a little surprised.
But congratulations, of course, to Xavier Esports' debut here, walking away with the win. And a tough series, a tricky series, all things considered. They would have wanted to come in, as any team would, with a 4-0, but they were a team that was maybe expected to come in with a 4-0 for how promising they were looking. On the other side of that, it is a shame that YOSHIMOTO couldn't get the win when they were that close to it, but this is a very different Japanese squad to what we've seen in the past already. I would say the mold has been broken, and I am still expecting good things out of this team as the season goes on.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way, and I don't know if I'd go as far as saying Xavier look like a team that were expected to 4-0. I think that kind of doesn't give enough credit to YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT. I guess in hindsight, at least, it does seem that way, because after looking at YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT, they look like a team that, with a little bit of tweaking, fine-tuning, are a top 4 contender as well. Xavier Esports, we were sort of before Oasis started talking about the fact that you're now at the space and with Xavier Esports. It seems like we're seeing them a lot. Small sample size, 2 matches, but seeing a lot that, why are we going to this map 5? Why are they constantly being at threat of being reverse swept? It's a little bit weird, but they're able to clutch it through.
Yeah, and I mean, look, that is, I guess, what counts at the end of the day, and you can win the entire tournament doing that, right? You can win the entire tournament having tricky series, nearly getting reverse swept, but always winning, sure. But you've still got to consider the sheer fact of that Numbani shutout. If they could be playing like that the whole way through, then yeah, this would have been a 4-0, certainly. And the capacity is there. You know, they wouldn't have had a shutout like that if they couldn't actually play that good. That doesn't happen by accident. So you've got to consider what's stopping them from playing that way all the time. And also you've got to consider if they ever get past what's stopping them from playing that way, if they ever fix whatever's going wrong, this is a potentially devastating looking team.
I think it's a very eye-opening match for both sides there.
Yeah.
You know, for Xavier Esports, once again, they have to reassess what's going on in that middle section for them because they start off really well and then they have to close it in. You know, they're forced to clutch in order to close, which is not a comfortable position to be in when you've been on match point for you know, the majority of the game.
Yeah.
And then for a team like YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT as well, like great comeback mechanics towards the middle point there, very revealing about, I guess, kind of your own strengths.
Yeah.
Note that YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT's a bit of a newer team than, say, Xavier Esports that have sort of been around, you know, through the Southeast Asian circuit for open division for the better part of 2017 rather. YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT's a bit of a younger team built from players across different teams in Japan, now specifically for Contenders. So, you know, very eye-opening for everybody.
Yeah, and that's the thing is it's an odd match for a lot of reasons. I kind of want to touch on a second part of the sort of oddness of that, and it's more on the side of YOSHIMOTO where, you know, we saw what they could do on the 2 maps that they won, and then we saw all the times where they failed to execute on that, and it feels like sometimes they kind of lack a bit of direction. They're not all moving, you know, in the same direction all at the same time. But we also saw a bit of that coming out of Xavier as well. Like, we said the whole way through that they looked cool, calm, and collected, and I always believed that they did, but there were times where they didn't have that same cleanliness, that same execution, but they picked up the win, and with that, let's go ahead and take a look at the standings for Group A.
It's going to be